Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. We're going to let folks trickle in here before we begin. All right, I'm seeing the numbers tick up in attendees, which is good. Just going to give it another minute or two, and then we'll get started here. Okay. Okay, well, in the interest of time, we'll get started, and this webinar is going to be recorded, and we will share it out to all attendees and folks who have registered. And welcome, everyone, to this fireside chat. We're going to have this topic of rethinking service and support with video intelligence, and I'm joined here by Ben Huber from Topcon. My name is David Swift from SightCall. And in this fireside chat, we're going to explore how real value is created in service and how video plus human expertise will shape the future of support. So as I said, my name's David. I'm the VP of Product Marketing at SightCall. And at SightCall, we're a video intelligence platform for service organizations. And we help service organizations resolve issues in real time with live video, improving efficiency and preserving expertise, as well as accelerating service performance with AI knowledge capture. SightCall, we were founded in 2008. We have global offices in San Francisco and Paris, and we have 150 enterprise customers using SightCall today with over 300,000 users and 1 million sessions per year. And one of our favorite customers is Topcon. And so I'd like to introduce Ben Huber, and I'll let you take it away, Ben.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. My name is Ben Huber with Topcon. And if you want to go to the next slide, we are a company that makes precise positioning equipment. GPS, lasers, optical equipment is part of it. Precise positioning for the construction, survey, and ag industries. If you know precisely where you are, then we can do really fun stuff with dozers, rotograders, asphalt, concrete pavers, sprayers, seeders, planters, all kinds of stuff that can take the engineer's plans or the desired plans and then automate the hydraulics or other sensors on a machine to drive cutting edges to exactly what the engineer designed.
Thanks for that intro. And so something to point out is that Topcon is also a Five9 customer. And SightCall, in fact, powers the video channel solution provided by Five9, also known as Five9 Video. The combination of video with a multi-channel contact center has proven to be very valuable to many, many customers. And Topcon is no exception, right? And so as we continue here, I want to frame it in that SightCall is an embedded solution with Five9, as well as a lot of other service ecosystem platforms. But Five9 is absolutely a fantastic partner with SightCall, and we really value the experiences that we provide our joint customers. So let's get to the questions, Ben. So I have a first question for you. And can you briefly describe your experience in service and support and how your role has evolved over time at Topcon?
Loaded question there. So I've been at Topcon for over 20 years, I believe now, and started out front lines doing tech support, doing training, taking a tour through marketing and beta testing, and back into professional services. More recently, then I started to own a lot of the platforms, which is where the 5.9 part comes in. So I was the one that then ran the team implementing 5.9, implementing SightCall, and along those things, got into the analytics side as well to start doing a lot of the metrics on that beyond just your CX metrics, but company-wide business analytics.
Great.
So
That's
operational side, strategic side, kind of a combination of everything.
Yeah, I mean, you're across the business, and I think that there's not a lot of service professionals that get that type of experience. So your input here is going to be extremely valuable, I think, for all of our attendees. In previous discussions that we've had, you've actually said in the past that customer service is often the business of bad news. And what does that look like day to day for you in at Topcon?
Yeah, typically people aren't calling their local Topcon person just to say, "Hey, just want to let you know today is everything's going awesome. Love your product. I got to get back to work." That's not how it goes. Phone call typically, or email, whatever the contact method is typically centered around, "My world is falling apart. Something is wrong, and I need you to fix it yesterday." And that's why I say it's the business of bad news. Like, people aren't calling to give us their, "I love Tide cleaner. I don't, none of that kind of stuff." Where it's time is of the essence. Something is, whether it be a broken product, whether it be a new person on a crew, that they don't understand it and need some kind of training or support, or it's been a while since they've used something. There's always some kind of urgency because their day is not going well. And when that feedback comes in, we're trying to obviously triage and fix that as quickly as possible, because time is money, literally. If they're not able to get their job done, then it's holding up either not just themselves, but maybe either could be additional crews on site, it could be materials that are coming to site. It could be, for a farmer, missing a weather gap where they can actually plant versus not plant because rain is coming. There's all kinds of things that could be time sensitive there. And that's where we're trying to get back on track as soon as possible.
I think that's a really great perspective there. Solving complex problems in service. I imagine that all of those calls are very immediate, immediate needs. And before I continue, I actually want to make sure that all attendees know, please ask your questions into the chat. We'll get to them and answer. We can answer them live, and no question is too many of a question, right? And so a question for you, Ben, is in terms of delivering service, and we are here talking about video, what do positive moments look like for you in the context of video support?
Yeah, so I'll even back up a little bit and kind of even bring in like the Amazon concept of reviews, where typically if you're going to buy a product at Amazon, you're going to see a lot of 5-star reviews. "Hey, I just bought this product. Can't wait to give it to my granddaughter." Like, okay, that's not even a review. That's possibly a paid reviewer there. And then you get the ones that, something went horribly wrong. Typically, you're not going to get a whole lot of the 2s, 3s, and 4s unless someone's really being intentional about not quite being an extreme. But typically, it's either really good news or really bad news. And obviously, we're trying to aim for the really good news, and we're trying to make that a positive experience because they're already in a bad situation. They're coming to give, in essence, a 1-star review on their day. It may not be a 1-star review on Topcon or the product, but by the time they're calling us, they are trending towards a 1-star review for how their morning is going, how their day is going. And they want to get that back to a 5 because they've got to get stuff done, they've got to be productive. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, then a video is worth 1,000 pictures. You're trying to solve these issues quickly, and you want to get to the root cause of what is going on. Sometimes that could be a training issue, and they're just the wrong person on site. Sometimes it is not necessarily the hardware or the software that's the issue. It is truly the job environment. And there are so many variables that could be at play that it's not just as simple as, "Hey, you rebooted your computer. Is it plugged in?" Like, that's not the kind of level of triage that we're looking at here. It is trying to look at a whole host of visible and necessarily sometimes invisible scenarios. Near an airport or a military base, all kinds of radio, and I use radio loosely, but all kinds of radio wave signals could be at play there that could be interfering with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and truly radio signals that could be impacting things. It could be visible things like a building is too close, or trees, or inside a tunnel, or all kinds of different scenarios that could be involved here. And you're trying to assess as quickly as possible what is going on with that customer to be able to then know which route you need to go from a troubleshooting and support standpoint to get them to a resolution.
That's great insight. I was wondering if you could share an example, a specific example in your tenure at Topcon when video support delivered real, tangible value.
I'll kind of go with maybe two. One where I wish I would have had video, and then we'll get to one where we did. So for years, and I'll throw out some probably non-competitors because they don't really live in this space, but names that people might be familiar with of like a TeamViewer or SODI or different things like that that could share the screen of your computer or maybe even a mobile tablet in the field. And those are great to troubleshoot support of software issues, where if I can see your screen and I can walk you through, no, hey, click there. Oh, I can see that you've got this setting wrong up there in the top right-hand corner. Again, those eyes-on scenario, but it's only literally the screen that that operator has. It has nothing to do with the environment around them. So having those were great, but wishing that we had more. I had a job where I had to go to an airport. They were doing a paving job on an airport, and the contractor was telling us that our system was wrong. Man, okay, I kind of doubt it, but it was a high profile at an airport. I had to drive. You probably don't know this, but anytime you're doing paving at an airport, that means nighttime. Once the airport is no longer taking arrivals and departures from airplanes landing on the runway, we were able to work. So we started at like 11 o'clock at night. We go out there and we start milling the runway, paving the runway, and I'm checking things. Everything looks great. Everything looks great. The guy comes up to me and says, yeah, I just checked it and it's wrong. What do you mean it's wrong? I just checked everything that's right. He was checking this $100,000 system with a $50 smart level that he had mistakenly put in degrees of slope, and the plans called for a 2% cross slope on the runway, and we were hitting 2% exactly. He had it at 2 degrees is what he was aiming for. He had it in degrees. I wasted my entire trip because he's checking our expensive system with a cheap Home Depot level that he wasn't, I don't want to say not smart enough to, but inadvertently put it in degrees versus percent slope, that if I could have seen that, it could have saved me the time and money and the lack of sleep, working a night job, of saying, you're doing it incorrectly. I can see exactly what the problem is from thousands of miles away. And that's a place where I wish we would have had a solution like SightCall. Now, then jump forward to having SightCall. We had a call come in where a guy's complaining, hey, the system's not working. And it's the things that you don't think to ask a question of, or they don't think to tell you is the problem. And suddenly the support agent is looking at the video and they say, hey, can you zoom in on those cables there? I want to see the part numbers that are on those cables. And so the part number on the cable, what? And so he brings the camera in and starts looking at them. And you can't see it because it wasn't the guy's face. He was showing the camera side that was on the machine, but you could hear him go, ugh. He knew right away as soon as we asked him and he got close enough to see the part numbers on the cable, he had put the wrong cable in there and knew it. But he would have sworn up to that point that he had installed everything correctly and the problem was with our system. Once we told him to go back and quality control that, because as they were looking at it, it looked to them like the wrong cable, that he had flip-flopped 2 cables. Once we told him, because we saw that. Otherwise, if we'd just been asking questions, nope, everything's fine, fine. It's going to take maybe multiple visits. Maybe we have to send someone out in the field to confirm. And again, if they would have got there and seen those cables were reversed, that was something that we were able to catch on video because we happened to see it in the background. Confirmed with him, he looked at it, facepalm. He knew what the problem was, said, okay, I'm sorry, I'll fix it. I got it from here. It's probably not the system at all. He called back later and said, yep, that fixed everything, no problem. That saved him multiple visits to a job site because we don't typically deal with the end users. We deal with our distribution network. Think of GM, where we are dealing with a Chevy dealer in the local area, with the Topcon dealer, but they're going out and supporting the actual customer. Well, that saved that dealer representative multiple trips to that job site that he wouldn't be able to bill for because it turned out to be his error. They have to eat that money. So for us to be able to catch that, it saved him time, made the customer happy, made us happy, wrapped it all up in one quick call because we happen to have SightCall.
So that's great. And just to kind of expand on that, what makes those moments so valuable to Topcon? You talked about saving money, time. What else is in there to unpack for Topcon?
Sure. Yeah, it is time and money saved. Because again, some of these job sites, if you think about Montana or some of those large states out west, that a lot of these are remote scenarios that a guy might be covering half the state of Montana, and it's going to take him hours to get to the job site. He gets out there, left his house at 4 o'clock in the morning, gets out there 4 or 5 hours later. We give him several things to check. Then he goes home, checks some things, goes back out there multiple trips. Yeah, that's time and money lost, potentially. Frustration. Also, just from the customer experience, now they're losing faith in product, in the solution, in the individual who is driving out there, in that dealership in its entirety. So we're saving brand name. For Topcon, for the local dealer, and for that individual, we're helping protect all of that brand and name recognition there and reducing that frustration across the board, which then makes that operator more productive, which makes his boss more happy because he's making more profitability, and all that improves. And everyone then has an increased level of faith in the entire system. The more that we can increase that faith, then that word of mouth spreads. They say that the best marketing is the mom's club. If they're going to be able to talk up your product among their girlfriends, doesn't matter how many millions of dollars you spend in marketing, you're not going to outweigh that word of mouth from that group. The same is true in our industry. It's not a mom's club, sitting around having coffee, but it's still a small enough industry that word of mouth spreads even to competitors when they see a positive outcome from these kind of scenarios for the overall product solutions.
Yeah, that's great. And I think we have this question from Richard here, and it kind of segues into the question I just have about measuring service impact and in traditional systems. But Richard asked, why, in the example you just gave, could that not just have been done with a WhatsApp video call? And also, what happens in low Wi-Fi, 5G signal, or no 5G signals, like a basement and areas like that, etc., for Topcon?
Yeah, so part of it is the integration. And I've said this to multiple, I'll throw SightCall in there with a group of other vendors that we have similar to them that provide different functionality and technology. If you can't integrate into the rest of my enterprise platforms, you're nothing more than a parlor trick. And that's where I would kind of dump the WhatsApp part there is, yes, there are some integrations that WhatsApp can do, but the fact that we can integrate this straight from, in essence, Salesforce is where we're doing this. Salesforce is our CRM. So the support agent isn't having a separate phone call through WhatsApp. They're able to initiate this, send the text to the customer from now a recognized number, click on the link, great, establish it. But the amount of metadata and metrics that's captured in that system that's all tied together, as opposed to us solving this through a WhatsApp phone call, but I have no metrics on it. So therefore, I have no way to justify the expense of any of this to the powers that be upstream for me. I need to have those metrics on why are CSAT scores going up or NPS going up or call volumes going down, whatever the metric is you're trying to prove. If I have all these fractured systems out there that aren't tied together, it's a loss on my part. I refuse, in essence, as the architect of a lot of these platforms, I refuse to allow that because I don't have the ability to then show the interaction. And I've got to monitor now one more platform. And I got these metrics over here and I got these metrics over here. And I can't prove that any of them correlate to anything unless you're gullible. And sure, I can tell a story that one causes the other. But when all those platforms are tied together, it's then easier from a agent experience, from a manager's experience, and from an executive experience to understand how those symbiotically work together, and capture all the data. At the end of the day, data is king. And if the more I can map about my customers, my products, my processes, the better it is for me to be able to prove value.
I think that's
Is that, I think, answering the question? Obviously, with no Wi-Fi or 5G, yeah, there's nothing I can do about it. Then I've got to stick to an email after the fact. You can only work in that situation where you got coverage. Right? That's just the reality of whether it be a voice call or a video call.
Yeah, and if I may add to that portion on connectivity, actually, SightCall recently released a new feature within our product, which is a pre-call visual data collection. We call it SightCall Snap, where you can actually take photos. You can additionally take videos, and that can be linked into that session that would take place. And additionally, this same feature is a link that you could send to that technician on site so they can collect information offline and that visual information and then return to a area that has connectivity, and all of that will be uploaded, and then you start the call and you have the visual context available. So it's rather more asynchronous collection of that visual context that is valuable within video, but rather not live. You have to return to the connectivity. And Richard just asked, I guess the video data can be saved for future training material if using an integrated system. You're absolutely correct, Richard. And I'll let Ben answer that. I mean, are you recording any of these video interactions?
It depends. So yes, I mean, I have some because they're great for internal meetings or even with dealers. I used one last fall at one of our dealer meetings from the main stage where I turned off the audio so that no one could detect who the voice was. I didn't want to embarrass the guy, but I actually used the video from that cable one that I told you about to put it up on screen just to show people that the call was there, that the agent detected that, had the operator look at it, identify the problem, and move on. But I didn't want to embarrass anybody in the room by actually calling out the dealership or the individual name of who it was that was on the call. But yes, we record some of them, not all of them. I don't think, I'd have to go back and double check on that, but I do know that we record quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, Richard, you're asking some great questions. And as a leader of product marketing here, I can't help but put a plug for another product that we have that was released called our Expert Knowledge, which actually takes all of those video recordings and turns it into structured tutorials for training materials and for future onboarding and for even reporting purposes. So essentially, you'll take that whole video recorded through SightCall, and we use AI to parse through it, all the transcripts, any images that are captured, because within SightCall, it's not just video. You can take snapshots, you can annotate, all of these other features within SightCall, and we turn that into a multimedia knowledge object that is then able to be scaled across the service ecosystem. And that's a new product that we have at SightCall. But let's get back to Topcon and a lot of the successes that you've been having. I'm curious, actually, in terms of scaling support, virtual versus human expertise, and looking ahead, how do you see support evolving over the next few years for Topcon?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, it's there's labor issues everywhere, whether it be actual people, whether it be the money, and then obviously onboarding and training things. If you haven't picked up at this point, we have a very technical, complex product portfolio that we're trying to leverage in these scenarios, and that's not something that you can just take someone who used to stock shelves at the grocery store or sell stereos at Best Buy. They're not going to step into that role and be an expert on day one. It takes a long time to ramp them up with that product expertise. So the more that we can provide virtual agents to handle the stupid questions and then only escalate the more difficult ones to the product experts, but then the new people can shadow those product experts to gain that wealth of knowledge or to read through a lot of the training material and a lot of those self-helps, helps get them up to speed faster because they're not wasting their time as much on those simple questions, although we can put them still in those simple questions, but then have virtual agents assisting the human agent to answer those so they look smarter on day one, and then can still escalate the more difficult ones to the second, third, fourth level of defense. So I think that that's a huge piece there of being able to deflect as much of that either automatically without a human or taking a untrained human and allowing them to have the knowledge, in essence, or appear to have the knowledge to answer those questions that come in at the easy level.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, from your perspective, it's not really just replacing humans. It's really about deploying them where they matter, because the issues are complex. There are difficulties with hiring and training and onboarding, and these experts need to go and support the most complex problems, which are oftentimes maybe the most valuable interactions that Topcon might have.
And the time that it takes, there's no replacement for going in the field and seeing a product in action and picking up those things that, yes, maybe we can catch on SightCall, maybe we can't. Maybe there's still training or the actual installation you have to do. So to get that information takes time. I got to hop on a plane, and I got to go somewhere, and I got to get on site. And as opposed to a phone call that is going to be less than 20 minutes, the number of phone calls you're going to miss by going out in the field, I've got to do something to still help that. People can't just go out in the field and leave the phones ringing off the hook and no one answers them. So you have to be able to have that time. So in an ideal world, we're using the virtual agents to handle the simple questions so that it frees up time of whatever level of agent to create more content based on their expertise to feed into the virtual agents, to free up more time for those agents to create more content, to create more. I mean, it's just this perfect snowball of heading towards perfection of the more that we can harvest out of people's minds, not so that we can get rid of them, but so that they can then be utilized elsewhere, either in product development or still in support, but just handling higher level issues, helping sales teams. There's a whole bunch of ways to take that wealth of knowledge that's in their head and leveraging it elsewhere that AI is not going to be able to do. It's that problem solving piece of you've got to still have the discernment of where and when to apply that knowledge that AI isn't going to be able to replace. But if you can free them up from the, I'll call it the stupid things or the menial tasks, that's where the virtual agents are helping us to then be able to reapply the expertise of these subject matter experts in other ways that still bring value to the company. And I would argue more value to the company because they're not wasting their time on, is it plugged in? Did you reboot the computer? You know, those kind of simple questions that should be self-help in essence from a virtual agent. We've freed them up to handle the more complex issues or create documentation to help with those more complex issues or help create a better product.
Yeah, that's a fantastic perspective, and you know, I imagine that a lot of these folks who are solving these complex and not being forced to solve the menial tasks have a lot, you know, they're happier in their job, right? I mean, if you're constantly saying, oh, you're, you know, password reset, something like that, that is not, I think that, you know, that doesn't fulfill a worker.
Oh,
right?
no.
Doesn't, and so there's a lot of value by people talk about shifting left, and it's like, oh, we're just going to replace everyone with AI. But I mean, SightCall, we're all about augmentation, right?
Yeah.
We're all about improving the experience of team members, and with video, that's a way to help in that process.
For sure. I mean, they're already in the business of bad news. So you're dealing with frustrated people all day already. To then deal with stupid questions on top of frustrated people just makes that agent's life less enjoyable, like you said. And so to be able to deflect that and give them the chance to have, I'll use the word joy. You know, the excitement and joy that you get when you solve a significant pain point as a support agent, like that's something that just energizes you to go back and do it again tomorrow, you know, next week, whatever, to solve something more difficult, or to be able to share that you now with the rest of your even team, I solved this. I found a solution. Isn't this awesome? Now you guys can all use this. If you're spending the majority of your day answering stupid questions, yes, you become just like a piece of the matrix that is not finding enjoyment. You're just part of the machine, and it's harder to get motivated in the morning to start picking up that phone call of disgruntled end user calling in or dealer calling in.
Yeah, absolutely. Final questions for you, in terms of what have you learned in support that really works and what really doesn't work? Just like some takeaways for the folks on the call in your experience.
Sure. And I would say that some of this is unique to us. I'm by no means trying to say that this works for everybody. We found that people want to come in and you end up with a new boss that's all about average handle time or how many cases you can close and all those kind of things. And we went and talked to some of our dealers. And what we found is I don't care about average handle time. I just want the actual resolution. Don't close a case with a resolution that says, go try this, and then hope I don't call back. And then I have to reopen the case. I don't care if the case stays open a long time. I'll go back to the Montana scenario. We might give them something to go check, and it takes them 4 or 5 hours to drive there. They might not have time in their schedule this week, depending on the urgency of the customer and everything else, to go do that. So it might turn into multiple days before they get a chance to get out there to try the potential scenario or get feedback on what size was the machine, what version of the software is running out there. Who knows? There could be a fair amount of information they have to collect for us, but it could take days to get there. They don't care that the case stayed open. They just want to know that we're still on it. They get us the answer to those questions. We then iterate and work towards a resolution. Well, once we found that out from them and realized that it's not a matter of a typical call center where average handle time and number of calls you're taking per day, that didn't matter to our dealers. They just wanted the right answer. Well, that freed the agents up. Now, parse the line of, okay, we don't want doing over the phone training because that's not a good use of our agent's time. So if it's a training scenario, let's not deal with that. But if it's truly a support scenario, take the time to solve it and get it done correctly, as close to the first time as possible, but not first call solution. Don't care about that either. That's great if it's first call solution, but knowing that it could take 6 calls is also okay, because now that we've talked to the dealers, we're all on the same page of what success looks like. And that was an eye-opener for us of, don't just go to the internet and search what success metrics are for a call center and apply that to your company. That could be true, it could not be true. But ask those questions of, would this look like success if we did this? And turns out the answer on a lot of those was no. So that was something we had to do, that solving problems in one visit wasn't necessarily a possibility. It was great when it happened, but realistically, that wasn't what was happening in most of our scenarios. And don't then rely on these overly rigid metrics. There's nuance to a lot of these that don't easily show up on a dashboard. And so for us, it turned into no news is good news. Because back to the Amazon 1-star and 5-star reviews, the 5 stars are very rare. We would get those where we get the phone call or email back that said, I just want to let you know, awesome experience with support there. It fixed the problem. The customer was happy. I was able to do an additional sale there, whatever the case might be. Those get sent up the food chain all the time because they happen so rarely. But when they do, it's a broad distribution. We always hear the bad news. When we hear silence, that is actually a good sign that, man, I can look at a specific rep or dealership or territory, and if calls are going down, then measured against sales, because maybe sales were down too, but as long as sales aren't down, but the calls are down, that's actually the good news for us, is that we have done a good job supporting them, of giving them self-help information. So it's a completely different metric for us of what we've learned over time, is not to be rigid on what is typical, but make sure that how your company does business actually is being measured correctly with your target customer, if that all makes sense.
It does. I mean, it sounds like anecdotes are super powerful, for sure, for you all. And I'm wondering, like, if you can expand on that and why, why that is and what moves the needle in terms of for Topcon and direction.
Yeah. Yep. Again, back to our complex product portfolio. We have some products that are very simple, very straightforward, and you could probably take, 20 calls on that in a day without any issue. Other products that we have, it could literally be days that you're in there. So being able to measure that internally and get that feedback of, hey, it was labor intensive, but we understand that, the customer understood that, the pricing of the product and the solution is kind of got that baked in of, we realize that this is not as simple as just flicking a single switch. There is levels of training that I have to have from an operator, from a salesperson, from whatever. We can't just throw a new hire on this system and expect success. But when you hear those anecdotes that you're talking about of, hey, I was able to take a junior dozer operator and turn him into performing like a 20-year veteran in a very short turnaround because of your product, because of the support that came from the dealer, because of the training material that you guys had, all those different pieces. Those are the kind of anecdotes that then drive the, okay, we are doing the right products, we are selling in the right way, we are supporting in the right way with the right distribution network, with all the different pieces, that the total overall solution is working correctly in how we're providing information here.
That's great. And maybe some closing question.
Mhm.
If you had one piece of advice to give service leaders, what would it be?
And I would say I would follow right back up there with that, like average handle time stuff, is talk to your customers. Now, it's not always easy depending on whether you're B2B or B2C. So that's adds a level of complexity there that doesn't make this an easy scenario. But the larger your target audience is, obviously still take some kind of polling of that, but understand from their side what it's like to do business with you. Because that's really the root of what I was getting at before with that average handle time, is what it was like to do business with Topcon. And turns out how we were trying to do business with them is not what they wanted. So the better you can do at finding out what success and failure looks like for them doing their job, for them having a relationship with you, which potentially turns into repeat sales with whoever you are as a company. You want to put yourself in their shoes as literally as possible, and finding out from them what, from their side of the equation, what that looks like. That should drive what your metrics are, what your SLAs are, what your plan is for doing your job well, as opposed to from an MBA or from other experts in the field. If they're not your field, then they don't really know. They can give some general best practices and maybe some things to look for, but only your company is going to know what your customers are. And you might have competitors, great, but even their customers might not be 100% overlap with what your customer base is, because so many different companies, even that are competitors, don't have a 100% Venn diagram overlap of what their pain points and product personas are. You need to find out what your people actually need, and then reflect in your service offerings what that looks like. And it's going to be different for everyone. There is no one size fits all. But the better you can do at understanding that relationship and then meeting that need, the better you're going to do at actually making 5-star customers that really are pleased with your product, that have 1-star days.
I think that's fantastic advice. And honestly, I feel like I was getting advice as a service provider for SightCall too. So resonated with me tremendously. Well, I think this is a time where we can offer guests here if they want to ask any additional questions. And in addition, you'll see on your screen that you can book a SightCall demo now to see what SightCall offers in terms of the full stack, from video support all the way to AI generated multimedia tutorials that can scale expertise across your organization. So please book a demo if you have the time, and we will show you what video intelligence is really all about. Let's see. Do we have any additional questions? Not seeing many come in right now, but that's all right. I think we touched on a lot, and again, this fireside chat will be shared out to all the registrants and attendees. And I would just like to extend a thank you to you, Ben, for coming on for this fireside, and a thank you to Topcon as well. This was really informative, really helpful. I'm going to rewatch it to see what else I can gather in terms of assistance from your insight.
Very good.
Okay.